I'm incredibly successful. I mean, just look at all these diamonds that I've managed to make from the Oh Dear store. And then also the Industrial Day Pass store is doing pretty well as well. But most importantly, my latest business plan seems to be doing incredibly well. I mean, take a look in this chest right here. We have got 32 diamonds. I mean, okay, a little bit of a caveat. They are my diamonds. I paid the 32 diamonds to look like this as well. But the store has only been open for a few days, and for it to make 32 diamonds in a few days is very good. Even if I'm the one that paid the 32 diamonds, it's still successful. It's still a success. Right, with all my successes covered, let's move on to some Minecraft projects. Oh, except quickly before we do, I should have done this at the start of the video. This video is sponsored by the Microsoft Office suite, specifically Microsoft PowerPoint, and actually we're looking at an excellent example of a slideshow right now. I honestly don't know what makes this place so laggy. I mean, I guess the many cows and sheep and discount sign and all the ridiculous builds and things, but still, I'm getting like 12 frames a second. Oh, and in case it wasn't clear, no, this video isn't actually sponsored by the Microsoft Office suite. However, Mr. Gates, if you're watching, my DMs are open. Right. Farms. I think it's safe to say that the industrial district is looking pretty ridiculous at this point in time. We have some very cool farms going on. I'm loving the way that everything is coming together. And today I want to make some serious progress on this place. Okay, I have set myself a bit of a goal, and it is a bit of an ambitious goal. In fact, I'm almost scared to say it. I would like to try and build 5 farms in this episode. In case you didn't hear me, that's 5. I don't want to say it too loudly because I don't want it to be true. 5 farms is a lot of farms, especially with the size of the farms that I want to build. But I think it's time that we just crack on with it and try and make some serious progress on this thing. So I'm not sure I am actually thinking. I mean, look at this guy. He's definitely not thinking anything. I'm thinking we start things off with a kelp farm. Now, the kelp farm I've earmarked as being in this area here. So you've got this slot that goes from this end right the way to that end there. So a pretty big farm. And as far as I remember, I mean, kelp is flowing water, so we could maybe have 2, 3, maybe even 4 columns? Yeah, let's pop into the redstone testing world and come up with a design real quick. I don't know why I don't just go on YouTube and look up a design, but I really fancied designing a farm today, but with that being said, it's not going well. However, I think I have come up with something that's relatively cool as long as this works, which it looks like it does. So a big problem that I had in Hermitcraft Season 6 is I built up a kelp farm that didn't have an off switch. And that meant, well, it was also in my base, which meant that it was running all the time in my base, basically causing issues for other hermits. So having a really solid off switch for this farm is definitely important. In fact, is that the tower that actually went over the top of it? I think it is. How beautiful. So this new and improved design has a fully functional off switch, which allows us to deactivate the farm, but then it also has fully automatic kelp harvesting, and it's also very lag friendly kelp harvesting as well, because there's absolutely no redstone dust inside this machine outside of the off switch. It is all done by observers and droppers and things, you know, the new age redstone. And I gotta say, now that we got all the kelp in, it is incredibly satisfying to watch. All the kelp just gets launched outwards. Alright, this is gonna be cool. It's also going to be expensive with a capital E, and X, and P, and the other E, and the N, and yeah, you get the picture. It's going to be really expensive. The first thing that I want to work out is I want to work out how tall this thing is going to be. So I thought I'd get all of the dirt strips in place where all the kelp is going to be going. Then we can get a feel for it. I think we're actually going to crash into that. So how does this look then? Impressive. It looks really impressive. I can't believe we're having such a massive farm for kelp. I mean, kelp is useful for fuel for furnaces. And that's about it. To be honest, that is about it. But industrial farms are cool. And that, my friends, is the most important thing here. Industrial farms are cool. Doesn't matter if the farm is that useful, it's cool. However, I have just run the numbers, and the S, the I, the V, and the E are also capitals because 630 observers are required. That's nearly 10 stacks. 315 pistons and 315 droppers. So that's a lot of kit. Step 1, acquire cobblestone. We have been here for half an hour, and this definitely isn't anywhere near enough. I've actually run the numbers. We need 7,500 bits of cobblestone, which is around about 120 stacks. That's a lot of cobblestone. But the machine has done the work, and we now have actually far more than 120 stacks, so that's all good. The next phase is getting all the nether quartz for all of our observers, which unfortunately the whole shopping district is completely sold out of. So we're going to have to farm it ourselves. And that involves a lot of this action. An awful lot of this action. Do you think this will be enough gold ingots to actually get enough quartz to do this? I mean, surely that has to be enough. Oh, how I was mistaken. We've managed to get, what, 6 and a bit stacks from all that gold? Are you joking me? I guess it's time to go old school. And in just 18 minutes, I managed to get all the nether quartz that I need to do this. This is not including the stuff that I got from my farms. Which, honestly, that has kind of... I'm kind of shaken. I've been shooken to the core. What do you mean my industrial farms aren't better than just going out with a pickaxe? This is ridiculous. Next thing you're going to tell me that I'll be able to get all of the wood that I need by just going into the forest and chopping it down instead of spending ages looking for saplings so that I could get them to put into my tree farm, and then the tree farm had no bone meal, so I had to go and get more bone meal. And, oh, that's not very fast either, is it? Well, after spending an entire afternoon faffing around with my industrial farms, I've got all of the resources required to build another massive industrial farm. So I guess I should get to work on that, and I think it will work best in the form of a third-person time-lapse. And even though the resource gathering took a decent chunk of time, longer than I was expecting, I gotta say, now that this thing is actually starting to come into place, and you can see all the pistons and all the observers and the sea lanterns that I've put into the mix to keep things lit up, it's worth it. You know, it's so worth it. I know that kelp isn't exactly the most useful item in Minecraft, but the farms look amazing. Like, they look so industrial. There's so much going on. There's so many pistons. And in a way, it almost reminds me of the old school sugarcane farms and the old school... I guess we had sugarcane farms. What else did we have? I guess melon and pumpkin farms. Before there was flying machines and you had like the push down, you used to have your melons and pumpkins lined up in rows on walls. And then you would have almost like these big rooms of just walls that go right the way up to the sky and you could see everything. I kind of love that. You know, as much as I love these flying machine-based farms, obviously they make life a lot easier, they're far more simple to construct, and they're way more efficient. There is something quite cool about the old school piston designs, so I'm glad that we've done that today. But there's still a tiny bit of work left to do. First thing is, I need to connect up this thing into my control center, so when I'm on my AFK platform, it activates the farm. And that, of course, means bringing in the incredibly cool-looking yellow concrete. This is such a cool addition to the industrial district. I never thought I would be this excited over a kelp farm, but yet here we are. And I am about to fly out and look at this thing for the first time from a distance, which I actually haven't done yet. And it looks so good. This industrial district might be one of the coolest looking things I've built. Oh my goodness. I'm just imagining it with all of the farms down here as well. And out the back too. It's a wild place. Honestly, I don't know why I put all that time and effort into making my base look cool when I could just build industrial stuff and have it look way cooler. Now, the only thing that I haven't quite thought about just yet is how I'm actually going to pick up all the items from this thing. Now, in a dream world, I can just have a little bit of water and then a line of hoppers along here, and that will do it. But hopefully none of the kelp overshoots. And the kelp is now all fully placed in, everything has quietened down, and now we can see this thing actually working. We can see the kelp flying out the front of it. It's actually a really satisfying thing to watch work. Just occasionally you'll get massive outpourings. It's quite satisfying. And now, after quite a bit more work, it's all completed. All the kelp is running into our sorting system. I've got 4 sets of chests allocated to it. We've got item collection systems, which all seem to be working quite nicely. All of the pistons are working. Everything is working, and this looks ridiculously cool and ridiculously industrial. And it's probably the best kelp farm I've ever constructed. So now I quickly want to leave the industrial district. You see, this face, okay, this face, it's not good, alright? It's a little bit too spooky for me. And, you know, I asked in the previous episode of Hermitcraft what would happen if I go into the spookification chamber again. Honestly, it can't get any worse than this. It really can't. So I feel like that should be something that we do. Now, it does seem a bit of a shame to lose all 111 levels, but I am ugly. Okay, I would rather lose the 111 levels than continue to be this ugly. So here goes. Inventory is clear. Armor is off. Diamonds have been deposited. And I've picked up the items that I threw onto the floor. I hope this doesn't cause any... I mean, I've got a bunch of iron and redstone in my inventory. This is not good. This is... yeah, no. not good. What? What? No! I've been turned into a robot. I'm like a cyborg. Well, I mean I guess that answers the question then. Don't take items into the spookification chamber. Mumbo Jumbo reporting for duty. With that being said, I would say that this is an improvement actually over what was going on a little bit earlier. I would say I would rather be made of metal and redstone than the horrible face and trouser situation that I had going on before, because that face and trouser situation was not a good situation at all. Anyway, I can't help but notice that it is more than halfway through this Hermitcraft episode, and I have only built one of the 5 farms that I said I was going to build at the start of this Hermitcraft episode. Now, I still have high hopes. I still think we can hit the goal. We're just going to need to do some serious work. It's time for a flower power pretty fast time lapse. And I tell you what, okay, I've built a lot of flower farms in my time. You know, I've done these, the moving floors and the shifting back and forth and the bone mealing and things. But suddenly it occurred to me that I've never actually built one that has an item collection system in it. I've always built them so that it goes back and forth for a little while, and then I just stand on top of the grass and pick up all the items. But this, of course, is the industrial district, and that sort of thing doesn't do. You know, we have to have automatic pickup systems that transport the items elsewhere. That is kind of the whole point of this industrial district, and that made things considerably harder because there's actually quite a bit of logic involved in there. So you can see I start building up some systems which have water flushing, so I flush the items off the top of the grass, but then to do that I have to stop the pistons going back and forth, I have to stop the bone meal dispenser, and then I have to make sure that the water is out for long enough for it to actually push the items across, whilst also not being so long that it really affects the efficiency of the farm. It turned into a bit of a mega project. Well, not a mega project, but it turned into a bit of a project. However, that project is now done, and we now have an incredibly fancy little flower farm here. This is probably the most over-engineered flower farm I've ever constructed, but it all seems to be working quite nicely. It all seems to be working well, so if I load up the bone meal into this chest right here, it will end up in the dispenser and the dropper system, and then it's ready to rock and roll. However, that is not the only flower farm that I have in this area here. I've actually earmarked this little space for a bone meal flower farm. You know, you've got the 2 high flowers that you can bone meal repeatedly and just get more versions of that flower. Yeah, I thought it'd be handy to have one of those too, so I think this should be easy. There shouldn't be too much engineering involved here. With that being said, I thought that about this flower farm, and, well, there was quite a lot of engineering involved. And if I'm honest, I thought that about the Kelp Farm as well. And that ended up being quite a major project too. Now, as far as I can tell, there's 4 different types of tall flowers. You've got the rosebush, you've got the sunflower, you've got the peony, and then you have the other one. So I've got 4 different segments that the flowers are going to go into, and we're going to have 2 flowers for each segment. And obviously these droppers are going to be running at full speed, or the dispensers are going to be running at full speed with the bone meal to get as much as possible. Now, that bone meal is hopefully going to be evenly distributed between all of the dispensers, making use of minecarts. So I'm just building up that system now. And, I mean, in theory, it can just bounce back and forth. So if I had powered rail here, and then we have the rails on top of all of these, maybe a powered rail in between each one of the modules, that should do the trick. I guess we'll have to wait and see on that one. For now, I have now got all of the loading system in place, so this should be the system which loads up our minecart with bone meal, and then it gives it enough to actually put into all of the dispensers. We've got the redstone clocks in place. That all sounds good. And now we have all of the item pickup systems in place as well, which means that this farm should now all be done, and I must admit, yeah, it's more engineered than I thought it was going to be, but when has that ever been a bad thing? Okay, these 2 farms need a ton of bone meal, so I'm just going to fill them up, and then we can actually do the first test, because I haven't even done a proper test of this one yet. Official bone meal test number 1. Now, don't get me wrong, the farm is incredibly fast, and it's producing a huge number of items, but it seems like there's like a syncing problem. So you can see we get bam, 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 and then it stops for a little while. And that is kind of inefficiency there. So I'm going to try and fix that. That is a little bit more like it, and the system is far simpler as well. That is a lot of items that are being produced here. That's probably too much for hoppers, to be honest with you. These industrial farms, hey, there's always something extra that you have to do. I'm hoping if we have 2 lines of hoppers, that should, and I'm going to emphasize the word should, be enough. It was. Right, bone meal test number 2. So let's see, if I chuck some bone meal in here, is that being evenly distributed? 1, 1. Okay, they should now all have 2. And now they'll all have 4. Nice! Okay, so the bone meal is being distributed. Peony, peony. Rosebush, rosebush. The other one. And sunflowers. Thank you ever so much, Grian, because I've looked all over for these things. Now this is where the rubber hits the road. I mean... yeah. That all seems to work. I mean, as far as farms go, it's about as simple as it gets. Provide bone meal, dispense bone meal, collect the flowers. And I am always ridiculously alarmed at just how fast these farms generate huge quantities of dye. I mean, they are so handy. But we aren't done yet. These 2 farms, that takes our total up to 3. We have got more farming to do. Next up, we've got the Netherwart Farm. Now, I've earmarked this spot right here for said Netherwart Farm, and actually, I think that is perfect. That's going to fit right in. And, okay, I've said this with both of these. In fact, I've said this with all of the farms in today's Hermitcraft episode. But this one I think should be simple. I really, really hope that it should be simple. First things first, we need tons upon tons of soul sand, which is much more fun to gather now that I have the soul speed enchantment on my boots, because, well, progress is considerably quicker. Albeit, you always have to be a little bit wary of speed in the nether, because... yeah, that was close. So I think with this farm, all I'm going to have is a layer of soul sand, which I place down the nether wart on, and then we have a strip which I walk back and forth on. You see, there's no way to fully automate nether wart production, or am I going crazy? Give me a second. Let's see. It does not look like it. That is absolutely excellent news, because I kind of panicked there. So yeah, because there's no fully automatic way to gather up nether wart, I'm going to harvest it automatically using water, and then I'm going to have to walk back and forth, planting it all back in. I genuinely think without the Hermitcraft shopping district, these Hermitcraft episodes would take twice as long to make. Seriously, the number of times I come here every single episode is ridiculous. So I would say that layer number 1 is almost nearing completion, and I think just because it will look cool, we're going to have this as a 2-layer farm, so I'm going to have another one of these up on top as well, just to get a little bit of vertical height involved, because currently this is a bit of a low spot in the industrial district. Getting all my signs in to stop the water. I've got all my redstone in, got all the water in, got all my pistons in. This thing is now all completed. I mean, if I just chuck a button onto here, we should see that the pistons will retract and then they re-extend, allowing the water to run across. We're probably going to need some form of pulse extender, but you can see, I mean, this really is all there is to the redstone. Like, it really is that easy. I gotta say, I am curious to see how this looks. It looks so cool! It looks so cool! The industrial district is looking wild. It's looking like a full-blown circuit board, motherboard type setup. I just think it's going to look even cooler once this second layer is finished. I would say I'm about halfway done. We've got the pistons, we've got the soul sand in place. I'm putting in all the area for the water. I mean, in terms of actual building, it really isn't a particularly difficult farm to build. It's quite easy. And that is definitely the first time that I'm saying that in today's Hermitcraft episode. Right. That is everything. All, I don't have a flaw there. Give me a second. The Netherwart Farm is now all done and completed and looking wicked and cool, and the industrial district has made me happy. I'm incredibly happy. This thing is done. Button. That is the harvesting. Everything falls down there, and obviously I will pick up all of the nether warts as I replant it, so that makes life quite easy. There's no kind of item transportation. It's all worked out quite nicely. It's all worked out really nicely, and most importantly, it just looks great. Industrial builds. So, between this episode and the next, I am going to do a little bit of nether wart harvesting to get that thing fully filled in with all of the warts, and also, I need to get a bunch more resources, because there has been people purchasing industrial day passes, and I think it's safe to say that they have been... yeah, they've been making full use of them. And like all of my gunpowder is totally gone. So I need to kind of catch up on the resources there a little bit, so that people don't get ripped off by buying an industrial day pass, coming all the way here, and then there being nothing. So this is going to be my spot for the next night or two. I really do hope that you enjoyed this Hermitcraft episode. It's been a lot of fun to record, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya. And I've just realised we only built 4 farms in this episode, and I said at the start I was going to build 5. Don't you worry. I am in such a farming mood at the minute that the chances are I'm probably going to build another 4 farms in the next Hermitcraft episode. Seriously, it's all I can think about. Skulk sensors and Hermitcraft farms. That's basically what my brain is going between at this point in time, and I have some cool ideas.